25th, 2024. And let's open the meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept. Can I change? Change things that I can, and the wisdom to notice this. Thank you. I will now give the floor to Miss, one of my friends. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 3rd of 81. So if I don't get drunk for the next 2 days and the rest of the day, I'll have a birthday. I think I'm supposed to introduce the chair, the person who's chairing the meeting, speaking at the. I'm not. Is there a book so it shows me how to do this? How does this work? I think her name is Shelley.
Hi everybody, I'm Shelley Tumino. I'm a grateful alcoholic. You're all here because you want to learn how to chair a meeting, right? Apparently Catherine needs this really bad. So here we go. So I'm a member of the Downtown Suburban Group in Tyler, Texas, and I have been sober since August the 16th of 1986. And I want you to know that the very first time I ever chaired a meeting, I was probably around 90 days sober, and I felt like for the very first time that I had something to contribute, that maybe somebody had identified that I was doing something right finally, and that they entrusted in me this amazing privilege of chairing my very first meeting. And it was a 10 o'clock meeting at night. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing or how I was supposed to do it. And it was the happy, joyous, and free meeting. And that's where all the young people went back in the day. Because we had 10 p.m. meetings that people actually showed up and filled the rooms, which was really pretty cool. And so I had to really have somebody guide me through the process of how to chair a meeting. Because at most meetings that we go to, there's a book that tells us what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to do it. But they really don't tell you a lot about how to handle the weird stuff that happens in meetings. You know, when the drunk shows up and wants to tell his whole life story while he's still drunk, things like that. And so those are things that we learn over time, and maybe if we've got good sponsorship, then our sponsors tell us how to handle that stuff. But usually, a group conscience has an idea of how they want their meetings to go. But the main reason that we have a chairman for our meetings is because the chairman sets the tone for the meeting. Their enthusiasm, the structure, and how things are supposed to go. And the chairman's job is to guide the meeting based on what the group conscience decided that meeting was supposed to do. And so they used to say all the time, it's the chairman's meeting, you can do whatever you want. It's not true. It's the group conscience's meeting. It's the group's meeting. And the group conscience decides if it's an open meeting or a closed meeting, if it's a speaker meeting, if it's a step study meeting, if it's a literature meeting, and whether or not you use conference-approved materials. And so that chairman position is actually really important. And the group conscience decides how long you've got to be sober before you're allowed to chair a meeting and what the requirements are for the chairperson. And in different cities, I'm finding, you've got different requirements. You have one person that comes and unlocks the door and another person that chairs the meeting. And in my world, there should not be the same person. You should not have the same person chairing the same meeting every single week. Because we have this thing in Alcoholics Anonymous that's called the spirit of rotation. And so we have the opportunity for everybody to get a chance to serve. And so if the same person's doing it all the time, it becomes Bob's meeting, if Bob's chairing the meeting every Wednesday. And we should never have a personality in a position like that, because we say principles before personalities, right? So the principle of rotation, and it's not Bob's meeting, it's our meeting, okay? And so a part of the responsibility for the chairman is maintaining decorum and order. And I was taught that you should always ask someone to chair a meeting well in advance of the actual meeting. So not 5 minutes before the meeting starts, maybe the week before. If I'm the opener and it's my responsibility to get people to chair the meeting, then I ask you a week in advance. And the reason that I ask you early to come and chair the meeting is so that you have an opportunity to be dressed properly. Because our big book talks about when Ebby came to see Bill, that he was bright and shiny and he had something that Bill wanted. There was something about the way that he presented himself that was different and new. Ebby didn't go to Bill's house after he finished mowing the yard. He went with a purpose, and he presented to Bill something that was attractive, that he wanted to see. And so that's how Ricky was taught, how I was taught, is that we dress the part. Because if you don't hear anything out of my mouth that attracts you to me, maybe you see something that is attractive, that makes you want to come back, that says, you know, things seem to have gotten better for her. But if I'm showing up to a meeting and I'm dressed like a homeless person, is that attractive to the newcomer? Does that say that anything in my life has changed? And so I dress up and I play the part and I do the deal. And so that's when I'm walking into a meeting. So let's see. I've got a list of things here to talk about. So the basics of chairing the meeting. So we talked about chairing the meeting at the home group. So you've got your little book that tells you that you're going to ask somebody to read how it works or the promises or the traditions, whatever your group conscience has decided is the structure at your group. So we're going to go through that, and we're not going to interject a lot of stuff. But one of my favorite things, and I left mine down there, is that I've got this magic box. We used to tell you to turn off your pagers. And now, I tell you that if you've got one of these magic boxes that rings, bings, sings, or dings, to place it into the silent mode so that you're not disturbing your neighbor. Because so many different things can be disruptive to an AA meeting. Watching somebody scrolling on Facebook, to me, is pretty disruptive. Hearing their ringtone go off and playing Baby Likes to Rock It, always very distracting. So, hearing those things are very distracting and take away from our ability to carry the message. Because some people, in the process of sharing, get so distracted that they forget what they're going to say, and they shut it down. And you might have just missed your miracle. Might have just missed your miracle. Yeah.
I think I forgot to open the meeting.
Did you open the meeting? You know what? One of the things that we try to do is always start the meeting on time. If we've got a published schedule, it says that the meeting starts at noon and it ends at 1, we start the meeting at noon. Not 12:05, not 12:15. We start the meeting at noon because people have lives, and that's what the expectation is. That's what the schedule says, and it says that it's a 12 and 12 meeting today. So we're going to pull out the 12 and 12, and we're going to read in the 12 and 12. Some groups have a schedule of what they're going to read. Some people say it's chairman's choice, and so the chairman has that responsibility to keep that going. And if you've got a new person, one of the things that we highly recommend is that you have somebody co-chair the meeting with you if you've never done it before, so that you've got somebody that can nudge you and say, this is how we do this. And so we practice that a lot at our home group, especially when you ask newcomers. So what do you think the chairman's requirements, what should be, Catherine?
I think we start out with a preamble.
That's a great idea. So we've got this preamble. And the preamble, did you know that the preamble for Alcoholics Anonymous was written for the grapevine? And it wasn't meant to introduce AA to AA members. It was meant to introduce AA to the non-AA member. But we adopted it as an introduction to our meeting. And did you know that the words actually changed recently? They did. But, you know, a lot of group consciences have chosen to not adopt the new wording for whatever reason. And you know what? We've got this amazing tradition. It's tradition 4, and it's that every AA group remains autonomous except for matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. And so you have the autonomy to make that decision to not adopt the new preamble. However, the conference-approved edition of the preamble says people, not men and women. And so if your group is truly going to be reading conference-approved material, you might consider that it could possibly affect AA as a whole by not carrying the message as it is presented by AA as a whole. So always a good thing. And so conference-approved literature is a really good topic for the chairman. Catherine?
I think I was probably supposed to start out before the preamble with a prayer.
We did do the prayer, didn't we? Did we pray? Yes. We did pray. Oh, you missed it. Because, well, why do you think you missed it? Because, oh, you were busy talking? So what happens before the meeting starts, right? We're so busy visiting with our friends that we haven't even noticed that a newcomer came in the room. Somebody that we didn't even know we didn't even notice them, right? Happened to me recently. Went to a group in the Central Texas area, and there were 150 people there. Never been there before. Walked up outside. There's no signage anywhere. It was at a church, and I walked up and I said, "Is this where the AA meeting is?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, it's right in there." And I go in, and there's 150 people there, and they are so excited. They are having a great time. They're laughing, they're hugging, they're having a great time. And I got my coffee, and I sat down, and nobody talked to me. And I was alone in a room of 150 people, and nobody there knew my name, and no one there knew my face. And I left there the same exact way, because no one spoke to me before the meeting, no one spoke to me after the meeting, and I identified myself as a visitor. So it's the chairman's responsibility also to recognize those visitors. That person that we ask at the meeting, is there anybody here for their very first AA meeting? And sometimes they'll tell us their name. If they don't identify as an alcoholic, do we call on them to share at the meeting?
They're not alcoholics.
They haven't decided, right? So what is the purpose of our meeting? Ricky, what's the purpose of an AA meeting? So does that brand new person that's never been to an AA meeting have the ability to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous?
They have the ability to carry the message about me.
Sure, we all know how to do that. All know how to do that really, really well. Catherine.
Sometimes I've been to meetings where they read portions of the book before the meeting.
Before the meeting?
Uh-huh.
Before the meeting's opened?
No, after the meeting's open.
Oh, okay.
But before we all are called on call.
Okay.
Identifying as an alcoholic.
Well, so one of the things that often happens is we have these things that are called door greeters. So do you guys use door greeters in Shreveport, Bossier? So a door greeter is somebody that's standing at the door and they're shaking the hand of anybody that they've never seen before, or everybody that they have seen before. And they're identifying those new people. It's usually a home group member. And they're identifying those new people as they come in the door so that they can let the chairman know that there's a brand new person at the meeting. Okay? Because sometimes your group conscience has decided if there's somebody brand new that it is the group's conscience to change the format of the meeting. But I discourage that. I highly discourage changing the format of the meeting just because there's a newcomer. Because while the newcomer is the most important person in the room, that's what we've always been told, I'm pretty important too. And I came for a big book study. And I would like to study the book. And if we change the format every time, man, that gives an inflated sense of self-importance. And do you think that person's actually hearing anything at that meeting? Who here remembers anything for the very first meeting? I don't. I remember crossing my arms and waiting for it just to be over because I didn't want to be there. I didn't really even think that I belonged there. And you guys weren't going to let me stay anyway because I was way too young and it was probably a closed meeting, whatever the heck that was. And I probably didn't belong there. So let's talk about the different kinds of meetings. And so we have, if you go into the meeting guide is where you find your meetings now, right? We used to go to the newspaper, and we used to go to a web page. After the newspaper, we went to a web page. Now we go to the meeting guide. And on the meeting guide, there are typically about 4 different kinds of meeting types. And so you've got your open meeting, which means that who can go, Ricky, if it's open? Anybody. So your wife can go, or your dad who has decided that he's going to make sure that you go to get your paper signed. He wants to escort you. They're okay to attend, right? So, but then we've got this thing that's called a closed meeting. That does not mean that the doors are locked, which a lot of people, it's a misnomer. We might think about renaming that because people are looking at the meeting guide and they're like, well, the meeting's closed, so we can't go because nobody's there. And so I've just been hearing that a lot lately. But a closed meeting is a meeting that's intended for alcoholics only. So if you have a desire to stop drinking or you think you might have a problem with alcohol, you're welcome to attend. But it is a place where we ensure that your anonymity is protected by having members only. So it's a members only meeting. Members only. And then inside of those, we've got subgroups of meetings. So we've got literature studies, 12 and 12 studies, big book studies. Sometimes we do Drop the Rock, even though it's not conference approved, right? And our central service did a Drop the Rock meeting. That's a book that normally, though, I wouldn't take to an AA meeting for a study, but I might use it one-on-one in a sponsorship setting for a home meeting. Because I'm going to stick with the conference-approved literature. And so conference-approved literature means that this piece of literature has gone to the General Service Conference, and our speaker last night talked about the concepts just a little bit. And so we've got this thing that is the service manual, which outlines the General Conference of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the General Conference meets every year, the General Service Conference, and that's where our delegates gather. And our delegates for our service structure in Alcoholics Anonymous with our inverted triangle, our group elects a GSR. The GSRs attend a monthly meeting at the district. They elect a district committee member. The district committee members and the GSRs attend the area assembly. The area assembly elects a delegate who represents us in our area at the General Service Conference, and they get to go and they talk about the topics that are important to us that we said were important. And every year they get these things called PAIs, which is a proposed agenda item that comes to the conference that they discuss and decide what the AA's policy is going to be on those topics, whether it is changing the literature or updating maybe some wording in the 12 and 12 or changing the wording in the preamble or creating a plain language big book, things like that. That there was a stated need by at least one member of Alcoholics Anonymous for those things to happen. And so the conference of all of these delegates, and I don't have all of the exact numbers of how many there are memorized, but there's a lot of them. Some states have multiples. I think we have 5 in Texas, but some states have only 1, depending on their geographics. And so there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 or 80 delegates, I think, and they're elected on odd-numbered or every other year. It's a 2-year commitment. And so they decide what becomes conference approved because we have delegated our votes to them as members of Alcoholics Anonymous. So they represent us. And I just went totally off on a sidewalk because it has absolutely nothing to do with chairing a meeting, but it is important information. Okay, so let's talk about what qualifications or responsibilities are necessary for chairing a meeting. So what do y'all do here? Is it just that they're breathing? Yeah?
Breathing, that's good.
What about you, Maurice?
We actually have twice a year workshops on how to share a meeting.
Uh-huh.
And a person has to be every 6 months and have attended one of those workshops.
So at Maurice's home group, they have a 6-month requirement to chair a meeting, and they had to have attended how to chair a meeting workshop. So when you all are done listening to me chat, you're going to be qualified. Isn't that cool? Well, you know, one of the things that should be a requirement is actively working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous with a sponsor. Because if you're not working the steps, why are you chairing a meeting? Because we have people chairing a meeting all the time that go, well, I don't know anything about this, but we'll talk about it. Have a working knowledge of what AA is and what AA isn't. So they need to know that we are not here to provide job advice or drug advice or medical advice or... What is do you even know what the primary purpose is, Catherine?
To carry the message.
Yeah, but here's the thing, is that carrying the message is important, but what's the message? You need to know what the message is.
Isn't it like to figure out like how to have a home and get a job?
No, that's what your sponsor's for.
Oh, so
That's what your sponsor for. So we can guide people towards sponsorship and teach them about what sponsorship is and isn't, but that's not the job of the group, is it?
Oh, you do it with the sponsor.
Yeah. And so we actually added to our opening statement at my home group, asking people if they need a sponsor. We also ask people if they'll raise their hand if they're willing to be a sponsor, but who needs a sponsor? And if you don't happen to know what a sponsor is, we have pamphlets over in the back that talk about sponsorship, what a sponsor is and isn't, because it's not a financial obligation like we would have a sponsor if we were on a running team. That's not what the sponsor does, although I had a sponsor that did that. Sometimes. Okay, so the chairman's also responsible for preparing a topic ahead of time. So knowing what the group conscience decision was on what that meeting type is, whether it's an open meeting, a closed meeting, a study meeting, or a discussion meeting, or a grapevine meeting, or a speaker meeting, all those different kinds of meetings. And so one of the things that I do when I know that I'm chairing a meeting is that I start gathering my people. I'm like, hey, we're chairing a meeting this night, so this is going to be the topics, and so we're going to be prepared ahead of time, and I'm going to know what we're reading so that I am prepared to speak on the topic. And that's important for me as a chairperson to not go in blind and have an idea what we're going to talk about. So even if it is a grapevine meeting, I've gotten a copy of the grapevine, I've got it on my phone, I've got a little app, and I pick out my article ahead of time that we're going to read at the meeting. And that's Wednesday at noon at Downtown Suburban, by the way. So if you want to come to the Grapevine meeting, come on down. I'll ask you to come and share on Wednesday at noon and be a part of the Grapevine meeting. because the grapevines are meeting in print, and it's really important that we help support that, and we can get some really great topics out of it. So generally speaking, the chairman should walk in the door about, 2.5 minutes before the meeting starts?
I mean, as long as they're there on time.
But what time is on time?
15 minutes before.
At a minimum, right? At a minimum. 15 whole minutes. And my sponsor said that you show up 30 minutes early and you stay 30 minutes late. You help make the coffee, you set up the chairs, you put out the books, and you make sure that everything is in order. And if the floor needs to be swept, you do that. And if the toilet needs to be cleaned or flushed, you take care of that too. And so we were cleaning ashtrays and we were washing coffee cups when I got sober. We didn't have styrofoam. What I didn't know, though, was that you shouldn't wash the coffee cups in the same water that you wash the ashtrays in. I had no idea. I don't remember anybody getting sick and dying from it. So they survived, most of them. Okay, so we talked about who can attend a meeting. Tradition 3, right? Anybody that has a desire to stop drinking can attend a meeting. But that doesn't mean that they're a member. What, Catherine? What if you don't know yet? You're welcome to stay. But one of the things that we've got that door greeter that has identified folks as they're coming in the door, and as they say, I've just met you, so are you new here? Have you been here very long? How about you? No. Have you been here long? No? So do you have a problem with drinking? Yeah? Okay. Welcome. So there's coffee in the back. Bathrooms are over there. So there's some books. Do you need somebody to sit with you tonight? I'm happy to. I'll come sit with you. Make sure you know what's going on. Because we speak a funny language here. So sometimes, you might need somebody to just help you along. So who can share at an AA meeting?
Whoever talks the loudest.
Not you, Catherine. It's enough. So anybody can attend an AA meeting, especially an open meeting, right? But do I call on the person that only identifies as an addict? No. I don't. Do I call on the Al-Anon to share? Not unless it's a family afterward meeting and it's been designated as such, right? And so an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting is a place where alcoholics share. If you're an addict, you can share at the NA meeting. But if you're an alcoholic and an addict, you can talk because you have identified as an alcoholic, right? So, and I know that different cities go a little bit different on all of that, but our primary purpose is to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. And we deal with alcoholics. I don't tell you whether or not you should take your psychiatric drugs. We don't talk about that from the podium. It's also the chairman's job to make sure that we're staying on message, right? We don't engage in any controversy. We neither endorse nor oppose any causes. We don't bring in outside issues, Catherine.
Sometimes chair people talk most of the meeting instead of letting us talk. What do you do?
What do I do? Well, the job of the chairman is to keep the meeting on track. And so as the chairman, if our topic is off of page 58, and we're talking about rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path, and the person who shares is not talking on that specific topic, as the chairman, I'm going to interject maybe for 10 or 15 seconds between shares, and I'm going to guide it back to the topic. Why would you do this to me? She has. She's clearly had a stroke. Maybe as old-timers or long-timers, because I'm not old, but I've got the badge. But I'm a long-timer. So it's my responsibility as a long-timer in the program to have a discussion with that person one-on-one about how our group conscience feels about those things. Yeah, but I'm not going to publicly shame anyone. Yes. So here's the other thing. We talk about anonymity being the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. So we talked about the spirit of rotation, but we didn't talk really very much about anonymity as that spiritual foundation. And while it's okay for me to stand up here and tell you that my name is Shelley Tumino and I'm a grateful alcoholic, it's not okay for me to go on Facebook and tell anybody that Catherine is also a member of AA. Okay? And why? Why do we not do that?
I don't tell anybody I'm a member on Facebook either, because isn't it a tradition?
It's okay for me to break my anonymity. It's not okay for me to break yours. Okay, so I can tell anybody I want that I'm a member of AA. But I've got to be really, really careful about breaking other people's anonymity because it's not about them. It's not about Bob and it's not about Ricky. It's about the new man. It's about the new man that has never found his way into Alcoholics Anonymous. And we have a responsibility to ensure that they have a place to go, that they're not worried about being outed to the world about their membership in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so while it's okay for me to say that I've found recovery, it's not okay for me to say that you have. Because that new guy needs to have a sense that he's going to come here and he's going to be protected and that this is a safe space. And if I'm telling everybody else in the world that you're an alcoholic, then when they see that on Facebook in a public forum or on any other social media platform, they go, well, why would I ever go there? Because they can tell anybody that I go to those meetings, and I don't want my employer to know. And so it creates a barrier for the new man that doesn't even know that he needs AA yet.
Isn't there also kind of an extension of that where you're not supposed to, you shouldn't advertise your program because in the event that you're all public and this and that and you fail, or something happens and you don't get it right, you can bring negative publicity to the program?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So at the level of press, radio, and films, right? Yeah.
It works, obviously, the way that you're speaking, which I agree, the most important part of it, but it also should,
Right, and
it shouldn't be on Facebook.
right. Right, in public forum. No, I have a friends list, and then I have a specific AA friends list that I have pared it down. And so sometimes I share things, but it's only the only people that it pops up for are the people that I've designated. But I also, when I am doing social media in regards to my recovery program, I make sure that I am only posting in private groups. A private group that nobody can even find it by searching for it. It's that private, and they can't see who the members are, and they can't see anything that's being posted. And so one of the groups that we have in the East Texas area is called Groups Connected, and you can only get added to Groups Connected if you are a member of the program and you've been added by a member of the program, but you can't search and find it and request to be added as a member. A lot of the YPAW Facebook pages are exactly that way. I searched and searched and searched trying to find YPAW stuff and couldn't find it until a member added me to it. And so some groups actually have like a group Facebook page. The Alpha Group in Tyler, Downtown Suburban has one, and then we've got Groups Connected, which we intended as a place to be able to post flyers and stuff like that so that people knew what was going on in different groups around the area and could find places to go and pass along information. So when they've got announcements at the end of the meeting, they can actually pull that up and make announcements. Yep, Morris.
I was thinking of still as a general rule, as new people coming in, the way you laid it out is great. Private messages and the things resonate. But since new people coming in, and some past new would not be aware of those messages, the general rule, press, radio, film today would be social media.
Mm-hmm.
This is just no revelations at that level, or not exposing yourself at that level.
Yeah, and like I don't go onto public forums and only in a private forum. That's really important because some people's anonymity, they're really protective of it. I, on the other hand, am not. I was not anonymous when I drank, and as a young person, getting sober, breaking my own anonymity was it was a protection mode for me, because if I told you that I was an alcoholic, you didn't offer me a drink, because I went to all kinds of places where maybe normal alcoholics shouldn't go. And I became the designated driver in a lot of places. And so one-on-one with people, I broke my anonymity all the time. But I don't go and do newspaper interviews, and I'm not published in any magazines, and I'm presenting myself as a spokesperson for Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's really important, because that's what we don't do, because we don't do personalities in Alcoholics Anonymous. Mm-hmm. You know, I think a lot of us get really happy about celebrating our anniversaries, and I personally find that while I don't say that, I don't always, I may have done it at some point, but I don't always say that, you know, that I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I do talk about my recovery and my sobriety. The coin isn't AA.
Well, I know, but in society it is.
Yep.
Technically it's not.
But it's not. But but Facebook's not AA either. And so that's another thing to remember, is that even those forums are not AA meetings. But Zoom meetings are. And so but we've got to be careful about that stuff too. And that's why they have those as locked meetings, and that it's important to have passwords on those Zoom meetings so that only members who have that information can access them. And so, part of, we talked about some of the things for chairing the meeting about starting and ending on time. I didn't see what time we actually started. Do we know what time we started, James? Okay, so we got 15 minutes left. So chairing the meeting, you're responsible for starting and ending on time. Staying in the room, I think, is really important, that you're not getting up and going out to smoke in the middle of the meeting when you're the chairman. Staying engaged in the meeting. I personally don't ever say, well, we're just going to go around the room and share. Because people check out when you're doing that. So as the chairman, I chair, I pick. And I go, you've been around for a while, so you're going to share. And then I'm going to go to Ricky, so I'm going to go female, male. And then I'm going to go maybe, mid-level sobriety, maybe sober a couple of years, and I'm going to go male and female. So it never turns into a mob meeting, and it never turns into a women's meeting. And I'm looking for an array of experience from the old-timer to the newcomer. And I'm making sure that old-timer that I called on isn't sharing 1 minute for every year that they've been sober. We've all had one of those, right? We've all got one. And yeah, and because they dominate the meeting, because they're going to teach us how to stay sober, right? But by telling the story that we've all heard 8,000 times. And so it's important that we keep them on. And so how do you manage that as the chairman that's a new person in AA? And I've got this guy that's been sober since Jesus was in Pampers, and he will not shut up. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wait for him to breathe. Thank you so much. Now I'd like to hear from Catherine. Okay, but if we're just going around the room, it just can go forever, can't it? Or you know what? It's time that we pause for the seventh tradition. Thanks so much. We love hearing from you. So much. So much. But one of the ways to keep sharing going, how many times have you sat on a meeting and the chairman says, well, I'm just going to open up the floor for whoever wants to share. And now you've got the second moment of silence while you're all sitting around a meeting just staring at each other, waiting for somebody to stand up and say something. That's not how you chair a meeting. You keep the meeting going because, we got an hour, y'all. And if we're sitting for 15 minutes staring at each other, waiting for somebody to finally nut up and talk, then we're wasting time. We've got an opportunity to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we should do that to the fullest extent that we can anytime that we're in the rooms. And we're going to share on topic, and we're going to keep it going. So as the chairman, I'm going to look, and I'm not going to wait for somebody to share. And the other thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to ask if you've got a burning desire. I am not asking for burning desires. I don't care what your loins are doing in my meeting. Do not care. Because if you've got something, if your butt is falling off, the alligators are nipping at your behind, let's go to the half measures room and we'll talk after the meeting. But we'll do that offline. Because not everybody needs to hear about everything that happened, that CPS came and took your kids and that you can't pay your rent and all of this. Let's talk about the message of recovery. Let's talk about the solution in our meetings. And it's okay to talk about the things that went wrong as long as you're following it up with how things turned around and how they came right. Because we are not living a vale of tears. And so I don't come into AA and talk about all of my problems without having a solution for them. I don't do it. So we keep the meeting on topic. Do we talk about abortion at AA meetings? Well, what my note says here is that we keep it on topic and we don't talk about outside issues and non-AA related topics. Why? Because it creates a barrier. It creates a barrier for service. The Washingtonians died because they became a political movement and not just about alcoholism and recovery from alcoholism. And so we stick to the one message that we have. The one message that we are unified on is alcoholism. That's the only thing we talk about. And so we talked about handling the old-timer, the long-timer that talked too much. What do we do about the disruptions to our meetings? We've got the guy that's having a psychotic fit. Catherine?
What about people that wear lots of political stuff or people that come in?
We have no opinion on outside issues. That's the thing. You can wear whatever you want to a meeting. My sponsor told me that I shouldn't wear anything that's distracting or that creates a barrier to my ability to carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I'm not walking in wearing things with a political message on them. I'm not coming in with a Schlitz malt liquor t-shirt on. I'm not coming in wearing my favorite sports team. I am not wearing anything in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that distracts from the message of AA, which means I'm also not wearing high shorts. I'm not coming in a mini skirt. I'm not coming in wearing something cut down to my navel. I'm coming in dressed as a person who is ready. I'm coming dressed for church. I'm coming in my church clothes. But I'm coming in covered up. And I'm not coming in looking like I'm looking for a date, because I'm not. Because if you're fishing in here for a date, you might be fishing in tainted water. As Ricky says, the odds are good, the goods are odd. Catherine, I got 10 minutes.
You said
Beth.
church. What about church stuff?
No, we don't talk about that. Jesus is an outside issue. It's true. Religion in any form is an outside issue. We talk about spirituality, getting out of myself and into somebody else. I'm carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's how we do. Okay? So it's really important as a chairman that we understand what the home group policies are. We've looked at the book more than 5 minutes before the meeting started. We know what the home group policies are. We understand what the group's tradition, how they are autonomous and having group autonomy versus a group conscience tradition too. Knowing the group guidelines and knowing where the meeting guides are and how to guide somebody to a new meeting. And so if I've got somebody that is being extremely disruptive in the meeting, we've got meetings where people want to fight, right? They do. They're just combative. Sometimes they're drunk and they're combative. You can have a security team. We call it a SWAT team in WIPA, where we've got people that are ready to move them out of the doors and have that discussion with them knee to knee and allow the meeting to continue. Because disruptions happen. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not clutching my pearls because somebody showed up at a meeting drunk. Okay? We expect drunks to show up. Please send me your drunks. Okay? But if the drunk is disruptive in the meeting and taking over the meeting, I'm going to have a couple of men or a couple of females ready to take them out. And as a chairman and somebody's being disruptive, I may say, hey, Lindsay, you know what to do. It's time. And they're going to take those people outside. And some of them are going to fight. But it tells us in the book, sometimes we might have to fight in working with others. So what happens if I make a mistake while I'm chairing a meeting? Am I going to get drunk over it? No. I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to get better, and it's going to get better every time, and everybody's going to be supportive of you. And if somebody has anything to say after the meeting, you thank them for helping you to become better. We don't take offense at people trying to be helpful. So what happens if someone tells me that I'm doing it wrong? Well, then come up and help me next time. Real simple. And so what happens if nobody signed up to chair the meeting? Somebody picks up the book, right? I'm going to volunteer somebody. Even if it's not my service responsibility, I'm going to make sure that the meeting happens and it happens on time. And can the chairman change the format of a meeting? Did I hear a yes? No. Should they? Why? Because the group conscience decided it's supposed to be a big book meeting. And so that's why, put your hand down, ma'am, sit down. So that's why when that is exactly why, see, she's distracting me. I love you, Catherine. Lots and whole bunches. The reason that we don't change the format of the meeting is that if we do that, every meeting becomes a newcomer meeting, and we're not getting the things for the people that are coming to fuel their souls. And so the group conscience said it's a big book study. We keep it a big book study. If the newcomer needs someone one-on-one, we take them out. We take them for coffee after. Maybe somebody goes outside or goes into another room with them. But we don't change the group conscience's decision that a meeting is supposed to be a big book meeting or a 12 and 12 meeting to turn it into a step 1, 2, 3 for the newcomer. Because they're not going to remember it anyway. They're just not. So, okay, last question, Catherine. Last question.
At a women's meeting that's really for women, and the men show up because they live in Albuquerque and they didn't know, can you take a group conscious of the people that are there to let them be at the meeting that night?
That's a tough one. But if they're an AA member and they're from another city, I would say, this is designated as a women's meeting, and we're really glad you're here. But there's an open meeting that is not a specialty meeting that's happening at this hour, or maybe there's one a couple blocks down or a few rooms down. But I'm not going to ask a group of women who came to a women's AA meeting to open the meeting to allow a man to sit. Not going to do it. Just like I'm not going to walk into a mob meeting. I'm not going to do it. So, some groups can. Again, every group is autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Is that the right thing to do? Probably not, because the group conscience decided that that's a women's-only meeting, and it should stay a women's-only meeting because there are meetings where women feel safer there, and maybe for whatever their background is, they don't feel safe in a meeting that is full of people of the opposite sex. Any other questions? Catherine? I'm so glad. So I hope that you have enjoyed my presentation of As Shelley Sees It. But the way that we did it in the 80s, I think was pretty helpful for me, and it worked and it stuck. But the important thing is that you show up, that you suit up and you show up and you be prepared for the meeting, that you don't walk in unprepared. You make sure that the meeting starts on time and ends on time. And if you've got sheets to sign, you can sign them, but you can also tell them that they can sign them themselves, that we have absolutely no obligation to sign their papers. We're happy to because we can, but it's not a requirement. And nobody's checking it anyway. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for coming. And thank you to the committee and everybody that puts this together. There's a lot of work that goes with it. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm stealing the book.